I started in early 1976, February or March maybe, and finished in the summer of '82, so that's 6 years.
Why did it take you so long?
Well, I've always liked the book, and I wanted to do the kind of bang-up job on the pictures that I don't believe ever's been done before. Well, I wanted the illustrations to look as if they were done for the original edition of the book in 1818.
And how did you arrive at the monster's appearance?
Well, Shelley was pretty vague on exactly how he looked. She describes him... His yellow skin scarcely covered the work of muscles and arteries beneath. His hair was of a lustrous black and flowing, his teeth of a pearly whiteness. But these luxuriances only formed a more horrid contrast with his watery eyes, his shriveled complexion, and straight black lips. So, as you can see, that leaves it pretty open to interpretation.
Yes, it certainly does. Thank you very much for that interview.
Oh, not at all.
I wish we had time to... Bernie, why is it so dark? Bernie?
Frankenstein. Tomorrow. Fire. Or else.
My first exposure to Frankenstein, I'm sure, as with many other people, was through the movies. The Boris Karloff version, the Universal movies. And I was very fascinated with that interpretation because, of course, I had never read the book. And when I did read the book, I was somewhat taken aback that the description in the book did not follow the image that I saw on film. Of course, Karloff's monster in the movies was, well, he still is, I think. He epitomizes Frankenstein to the general public. When you mention Frankenstein to the man on the street, I believe he immediately thinks of Boris Karloff. Karloff was wonderful. We have to separate the two to really talk about them, because there's Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and there's Boris Karloff's Frankenstein. The man had such a feel for communicating emotion with no language and just through his body and his face that he really didn't need the speech. I mean, of course, he couldn't make the speeches that the monster makes in the book, but as I said, they're two different things.
It's amazing.
It's essentially a story of ideas. The first time I read it, it was somewhat of a letdown after seeing the movies. I expected something more like the movies in the book, more of an adventure story. And it took 2 or 3 times of reading the book and rereading before I really began to get a feel for what Mary Shelley was doing with the story. She wasn't really telling a horror story. She was using the form of a horror story, a fantasy, romantic fantasy, to deliver a moral point. So I did a story called The Muck Monster a few years ago, which was a rendition of the tone or the atmosphere of the book.
I remember first the darkness, then the warmth, and finally awareness. Then I saw him that brought about my being, but I resented him. I resented his presumption upon a higher power. I resisted his attempts upon my being. I did not want life, so I did not receive it. And my Creator raged. He blamed me for his failure. I did not want his gift of creation. I rejected it. I had no place in the world of men. I wanted to explain, but of course I couldn't. And when at length his rage mounted and he lunged at me with the knife, I became angry. Angry not because he would destroy what he had created, but because he didn't understand. I was an aware being, not just an inanimate thing. I thought, I reasoned, I was.